Once upon a time, in a magnificent palace nestled amidst rolling green hills, there lived a princess named Lara. She was known throughout the kingdom for her kindness, grace, and beautiful heart. One sunny afternoon, as the gentle breeze swirled through the garden, Lara skipped along the flower-lined paths, her laughter filling the air. She was playing with the butterflies, watching them dance around her, when something unexpected happened. Lara's feet slipped on the wet grass and she tumbled forward, landing with a soft thud. A sharp crack echoed in the air. It was the sound of her precious crown breaking into two pieces. The crown had been a gift from her grandmother, who had passed away many years ago. Lara's heart sank as she stared at the broken pieces, her eyes brimming with tears. The loss of her grandmother's gift was too much to bear, and the grief that filled her chest seemed to shatter her heart in the same way the crown had broken. Her sorrow was so deep that the sound of her heart breaking was as loud as thunder. The echo of her pain traveled across the land, reaching the ears of a little fairy who was busy planting roses in a nearby meadow. The fairy named Lyra was known for her gentle nature and her magical powers that could heal wounds and mend broken things. As soon as she heard Lara's cry, she hurried to the princess's side, her wings fluttering delicately in the wind. "Princess Lara, what has happened?" Lyra asked, concern filling her voice. Lara, through her sobs, explained the situation. She told Lyra about the crown and how it had been a gift from her late grandmother. "Now it's broken and I feel like my heart is broken too," Lara said, her voice trembling. Lyra's heart ached for the princess, and without hesitation, she raised her delicate hand and whispered a few words of magic. The air shimmered with a soft glow, and the broken pieces of the crown floated into the air. Slowly, they began to come together, and in moments, the crown was as beautiful as it had been before. "There," Lyra said with a smile, placing the crown back onto Lara's head. "It's as good as new." Lara gazed at the crown in awe, her sadness melting away as she realized the kindness of the fairy. She smiled brightly and, grateful beyond words, said, "Thank you, Lyra. You've mended not only my crown but also my broken heart." From that day on, Lara and Lyra became the best of friends. The fairy promised, "Whenever you need me, just call my name 4 times and I will come to your aid." Time passed and Lara grew even more fond of her new friend. One day there was a grand party at the palace. The ballroom was filled with laughter, music, and the soft rustle of sleeks as the guests danced and chatted. Lara was having a conversation with her 2 closest friends, Princess Amethyst and Princess Sarah, when she learned that Amethyst had lost a precious family necklace and Sarah had been plagued by terrible nightmares every night. Feeling sympathy for her friends, Lara decided to help. She led them to the palace garden, where she called Lyra's name 4 times, as the fairy had instructed. Almost immediately, Lyra appeared, her wings sparkling in the moonlight. "Lyra, I need your help," Lyra said. "Amethyst has lost her necklace, and Sarah is haunted by nightmares." Lyra smiled kindly and nodded. "I will help you." With a flick of her wrist, Lyra used her magic to search for the missing necklace. Within moments, the necklace appeared in the air and gently landed in Amethyst's hands. Amethyst's eyes widened in amazement and gratitude as she clutched the necklace to her chest. Next, Lyra turned to Sarah, who had been looking anxious. "Fear not, my dear," Lyra said, and she began to sing a soft, soothing melody. As Lyra sang, the nightmares that had tormented Sarah seemed to melt away, leaving behind a peaceful calm. Sarah's eyes fluttered shut, and she could sleep soundly for the first time in weeks. "Thank you, Lyra," Amethyst and Sarah exclaimed, their faces filled with gratitude. "You are very welcome," Lyra replied with a gentle smile. "May your dreams be peaceful from now on." The 3 friends returned to the party and everything seemed perfect. But as the days passed, Sarah began to feel a twinge of jealousy toward Lara. She couldn't understand why Lara had such a special connection with Lyra, and she secretly wished she could have the fairy's help all to herself. In the darkness of the night, Sarah hatched a plan. She summoned the palace magician and ordered him to prepare a trap that would capture the fairy. The magician, who was skilled in magic but bound by his loyalty to the princess, reluctantly agreed to help. Together, they set up a magical snare in garden, a trap that would capture Lyra when she appeared. The next day, when Sarah called Lyra's name 4 times, the fairy appeared, ready to help Lyra's friend. But the trap was ready. As soon as Lyra appeared, the magician cast a spell, and the glowing rope ensnared the fairy, binding her tightly. Lyra struggled but was unable to break free. Sarah smiled coldly, her eyes glinting with triumph. "Now you are mine, fairy," she said, and she dragged Lyra into her room. There she locked the fairy in a glass cage, saying, "You will serve me from now on." Each day Sarah demanded more from Lyra. She ordered the fairy to grant her wishes, from bringing her the finest clothes to creating magical treasures at her command. Lyra, though trapped and unable to escape, never harmed Sarah. She continued to obey, not wanting to cause harm. Though each time she used her magic, she grew weaker. Meanwhile, Lara began to notice that when she called for Lyra, the fairy no longer appeared. Concerned, she went to Amethyst's palace to search for her friend, but there was no sign of Lyra. Then she went to Sarah's palace and knocked on her door, but Sarah refused to let her in her room. Suspicious, Lara decided to investigate further. She quietly peeked through a crack in the door and saw Lyra locked in a glass cage, her wings drooping from exhaustion. Laura's heart broke as she realized what Sarah had done. She couldn't let this continue. That night, she stayed at Sarah's palace, pretending to be unwell. When the palace was silent and everyone was asleep, Laura slipped into Sarah's room and crept toward the glass cage. With trembling hands, Laura unlocked the cage and began to untie the magical rope that bound Lyra. But just as she was about to free her, Sarah woke up and struck Laura over the head with a heavy vase. The fairy, who had been facing away, did not see Sarah's attack, but when she turned and saw that Laura had been hurt, a surge of anger and protection flooded through her. In an instant, Lyra raised her hands, and with a burst of magic, she turned Sarah into a small, fluffy rabbit. Laura, dazed from the blow to her head, looked up to see Sarah transformed. Lyra gently healed her wounds, her touch soft and comforting. The next morning, Lyra and Laura went to the king and queen. Lyra explained what had happened, and she held up the rabbit, now in a small cage. In 2 days, the magic will wear off, Lyra said. Your daughter will return to her normal self. The king and the queen, deeply ashamed of their daughter's actions, apologized profusely. They promised that Sarah would learn from her mistake. Laura returned to her palace and Lyra went back to her world of fairies. Although Sarah would eventually return to her human form, she had learned a valuable lesson about kindness, friendship, and the consequences of jealousy. And from that day forward, Laura and Lyra remained the best of friends, always there for one another, no matter what. And so, peace returned to the kingdom, and the bond between the princess and the fairy remained unbreakable forever and always. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe my channel. See you next time everyone. Bye bye.